California is collapsing. If it were a country, it'd be the fifth largest economy in the world. But it lost 500,000 residents in 2 years, and people are still fleeing. Here's how politics and greed ruin the best place on earth. The Golden State's fall from grace isn't just a cautionary tale. It's a full-blown epic tragedy, and a sad sight to see. California was the American dream personified. Now, it's a progressive nightmare. Let's rewind and see just how far it's fallen.
Because it absolutely is in our schools, and it's becoming more and more prominent. I was noticing that my students, I teach the English language learners, and of course we were teaching online for a year and a half, and imagine teaching English language learners online and how difficult that already is for them. And I noticed a pattern because I have them check their grades. We have a homeroom class and I have them check their grades in all of their other classes. And I was noticing a pattern of a lot of F's in ethnic studies, especially among the boys. And I would ask them, why are you guys failing your ethnic studies class? And they would tell me, this class is so dumb. And I luckily had access to the same platform as the teacher that was teaching this class at my site. Mm-hmm. And I got to see all of the lessons, and I was completely shocked by what they were teaching the students. Ethnic studies is not the study of other cultures. It's the study of leftist wokeism.
Yeah. California gave us Silicon Valley, Hollywood, and the Reagan Revolution. Now, it's a dystopian hellscape of homelessness, crime, and crushing taxes. Tech billionaires thrive in gated communities, but the middle classes seek refuge in red states. California's rise was meteoric. 1,850, 31st state. 1,911, Hollywood born. 1,937, Golden Gate Bridge opens. 1,956, Silicon Valley's first hard disk. 2022, world's fifth largest economy. But in just 2 years, 500,000 fled the state. What's driving this mass exodus?
Yet for all its glory, for the first time in history, California lost population in 2020, in what is being called the Great California Exodus. For the last 2 decades, hundreds of thousands have left the Golden State, and it's starting to accelerate. A vast majority of them cite California's cost of living. To buy a basic single-family home, Californians need at least 7 times the median income. Half of all residents in Los Angeles County spend 50% or more of their paycheck just for rent. And it's not just workers leaving. Hundreds of large companies, including titans like Oracle, HP, and Tesla, have or are moving out, taking with them tens of thousands of high-paying jobs as a result of California's hostile business environment. Indeed, despite its gargantuan economy, which would rank it 5th in the world if it was an independent country, if you adjust California's median income with cost of living and taxes, you'll find in actuality it's not nearly as rich as you might have suspected. Having the second highest cost of living only being beaten out by Hawaii, it's no wonder why California has the highest percentage of its population living in poverty, and even half of the entire homeless population of the United States.
First, the cost of living has become absurd. Median home price in California $785,000. That's 2-3x higher than Texas. $336,000. You're paying a premium to live in a state that's falling apart.
Big news this morning. Breaking news, in fact. Governor Gavin Newsom issues an executive order to remove all homeless encampments in California. The directive is the most sweeping response to the Supreme Court decision that came down last month, giving local leaders greater authority to remove homeless camps. California has the highest number of unhoused people, by the way. Newsom will mandate that state agencies not just move campers, but work with local governments to provide services, something the state has pumped billions of dollars into, as you may know. The order guides state agencies on how to go about removing encampments. So let's see how this plays out.
So this is not this is not a mandate, essentially saying all cities and towns you have to clear out your encampments, right? This is empowering them to make those decisions.
Right. And then you're like, well, why was this not done before? So basically local and states won't get funding unless they actually follow through with this. So that gives incentive to organizations or whoever is in charge. I don't even know anymore because it's hard to keep track to really.
Second, crushing taxes. California has the nation's highest state income tax, 13.3%. 9 states, including Texas and Florida, have zero income tax. This government greed has fueled a mass exodus. Even businesses are done with California.
Do you think it's possible that Silicon Valley is still a place where magic happens, where the next Google is built, where the next, Brave is built, where...
I think all good things come to an end. I think the problem is Silicon Valley had strong network effects through Stanford, through the angel investor networks and the wealth effect. And originally, you have to give the federal government credit. Like the ARPANET was a government project. Let's not kid ourselves. This wasn't wild free market, libertarian capitalism. This was all Cold War stuff. You had out of the academia, you had Shockley, and then the Traitorous Eight and Fairchild and Intel. But now, when's the last fab that was built in the Valley? MicroUnity might have been the last fab. I don't know. I haven't followed, but we built a fab in Sunnyvale and MicroUnity starting in the early 90s. And now the fabs are overseas. And the one thing that I would say that the oligarchs have intentionally done, in both parties, is sort of labor and environmental protection law arbitrage by going where the labor is cheaper and the environmental laws aren't as strict.
441 company headquarters have relocated since 2018. Their top destinations: Texas, Florida, Tennessee. Even tech giants are jumping ship. Elon's moving SpaceX headquarters to Texas, and X's headquarters is moving to Austin. He cited that laws attacking families and companies were the final straw. California's infrastructure is a joke. High-speed rail, 14 years late, and 3x over budget. Water crisis, decades of inaction despite recurring droughts. They spend big, but where's the money going? Speaking of wasted money, let's talk homelessness.
You gotta understand, all that equipment stays out here too. Out here in the open, in the world.
She has spent $17 billion since 2019, but homelessness only worsens. Liz homeless exploded 56% from 2015-2022. Are the people solving homelessness incentivized to actually fix it? But wait, it gets worse. New policies are accelerating the decline.
I'm a border state governor. You don't need to lecture me on this topic. The reality is lived every single day. We need comprehensive immigration reform. And the irony of this, the frustration I have, is Joe Biden put out a great plan. He has a plan, 8-year pathway to citizenship, fast-tracking Dreamers and TPS, dealing with border security and new technology.
Well, Governor, I know you're complaining that we're a border state here, but come on, think about it for a minute. Why are you allowing your Senate Appropriations Committee here in the state to pass a proposal that would give illegal immigrants down payment assistance when they come to buy a house? What about hardworking Californians? And then on top of that, you're giving promos to the Biden administration who diverted the VA benefits that were meant to be for veterans. These were healthcare benefits that are now going to illegal immigrants. We're doing the same thing here in California with that big Medi-Cal expansion that allows illegal immigrants to receive free healthcare. On top of that, the Senate Appropriations Committee just passed a proposal. They want to have control over the masses, so they want to institute universal basic income. California is the petri dish for what they want to do in the rest of the nation. I mean, come on, you're also blaming Republicans for the fact that we haven't had meaningful immigration reform. Recall that Democrats controlled both houses of Congress in 2021 and still did not manage to pass the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Act of 2021. Biden promised a path to citizenship for these people and did not deliver, so enough with the politics.
In April 2023, fast food minimum wage hit $20. HR. The result: job losses, restaurant closures, 8% price hike in 2 months. And now, Governor Newsom's unelected Fast Food Council is voting on a 35% wage increase. They're doubling down on failure. Former residents aren't mincing words. The media can't ignore it anymore.
Some insane news from California. They now want to tax you if you leave the state for many years in the future. The United States already has an exit tax on everybody worth over $2 million when you renounce your citizenship, just like I did. Many people have paid millions of dollars in exit taxes. Now California wants to do it on a state level. Once you leave California, if your net worth is over $30 million, and this is an important note, if they determine that your net worth is more than $30 million, because you might have a business right now that is not making $30 million, you're not worth $30 million, but to the state, analyzing how much you could get paid for that business, if you sold it, it could be deemed that you are worth $30 million, because although your business makes $1 or $2 million a year, you are, if you sold it, worth $30 million, and you need to pay 0.4% of your taxes for the next 10 years to California. Now you might be thinking, well, this is less than 1%, but it's for leaving a state that is already taxing you to death. They will start imposing a wealth tax this year, 2024, on people worth $1 billion or more. Most of my viewers are not billionaires, but starting in 2026, they will impose a wealth tax on you worth $50 million or more.
The Times. California exodus left a gaping population hole. WSJ. California loses people, business to other states. So is California collapsing? Not quite, but the cracks are showing. Here is a powerful message from a California sheriff, who isn't afraid to challenge the status quo, as he takes a stand against Governor Gavin Newsom's progressive policies, offering a perspective that resonates with many seeking leaderships grounded in common sense and practical solutions. Let's hear his thoughts.
Good morning. Chad Bianco, Riverside County Sheriff. We are here today because California public safety is in crisis. Crime is steadily on the rise, and our public safety policy is one of the worst, if not the worst, in the nation. I want to make this clear, and I want there to be no mistake in what I am saying. This is not by accident. The driving force in our crisis is a radical, progressive agenda fraudulently called criminal justice reform. This is nothing short of a sick and twisted social experiment where law enforcement is the bad guy and criminals are somehow victims of society and not responsible for their actions, their crimes, or accountable to their countless victims. This agenda began with the passage of AB 109, the so-called Public Safety Realignment Act. State government failed to take responsibility for prison overcrowding or their failure to build more prisons, and instead forced county jails to house state inmates while simultaneously releasing thousands of felons early. This has pushed our county jails to a near collapse and caused the early release of countless criminals. Thousands upon thousands of criminals are being released from custody early, crime is increasing, and our governor is closing prisons instead of building new ones. It defies common sense. In 2014, a complete fraud was perpetrated in California. The so-called Safe Streets and Safe Schools Initiative, Prop 47, changed many felonies to misdemeanors, basically legalized drug use, and increased the amount of petty theft to nearly $1,000. In 2016, another lie was perpetrated on voters with the naming and wording of Prop 57, tricking voters into approving the release of thousands of violent criminals onto our streets and neighborhoods. This is why we are here. Everyone knows Prop 47 and 57 are disasters, and yet Governor Newsom adamantly touts it as a success, and lawmakers continue to refuse to fix their mistake and the problems that they have created. When once crimes are no longer crimes, it allows Governor Newsom and Attorney General Bonta to cite completely flawed data points to support their failures. Californians are now suffering the consequences of a failed social agenda. We are now at our breaking point, and Californians have had enough. The lie of Prop 47 has been exposed, and the progressive love affair with criminals at the expense of victims has infuriated law-abiding Californians. While we suffer every day with rampant theft causing our small businesses to close and our large box stores to move out of state, our supermajority of lawmakers sit here in their guarded tower oblivious to what is going on in their communities, experiencing drastic increases in all crimes, particularly violent crimes. Over the past 5 years, law enforcement has been unable to get our progressive left majority to even consider any new law or modification to an existing law that would increase punishment or send criminals to prison. Reality has gone completely upside down, to the point our governor, our lawmakers, and our attorney general refuse to prosecute criminals, to include those criminals committing crimes with guns, and instead have dedicated their efforts to disarm and remove constitutional protections of self-defense from law-abiding Californians. We are in a very important election year, and the political silliness is surfacing all around us. The same supermajority who refused any sort of tough on crime laws for the past several years are up for re-election. They are now claiming they are going to address our public safety crisis with new laws cracking down on crime. The problem is every one of their bills are disingenuous and hollow. For instance, one bill claims to address theft by lowering the felony limit back to $400. Upon examination of the bill, you will find that it gives these career criminals 3 more chances to steal and be convicted before they are sentenced to prison. That is a minimum of 3 more victims. We cannot turn on the news, read the newspaper, go to the grocery store, or open our businesses without being slapped in the face of reality that criminals have been emboldened by a lenient system that holds no consequence for criminal behavior. Instead of addressing the obvious, tone-deaf Governor Newsom attacks a Target employee for not stopping a criminal from fleeing the store instead of taking an honest look at the failed social experiment that he himself leads that allowed that theft to occur. It is time we wake up and hold our politicians accountable for what their bills, laws, and policies have caused. It is time to return to a common sense approach to crime, realizing and admitting that there are evil people who refuse to conform to a civilized society and instead choose to victimize the rest of us by stealing our property, robbing our stores, flooding our streets with drugs, including fentanyl, breaking into our homes, murdering our children, and giving the middle finger to our justice system. Californians deserve better. I am proud to support lawmakers like Bill Essayli and several others who acknowledge that criminals are responsible for their actions and they need to be held accountable. Thank you.
Peter Thiel draws an interesting parallel. He compares California's woke religion to Saudi Arabia's Wahhabism. Both ideologies stifle growth and innovation.
The crazy thing about California is, there's always sort of a right-wing or libertarian critique of California that, it's such a ridiculous place. It should just collapse under its own ridiculousness, and it doesn't quite happen. The macroeconomics on it are pretty good. 40 million people, the GDP's around $4 trillion. It's about the same as Germany with 80 million or Japan with 125 million. Japan has 3 times the population of California. Same GDP means 1/3 the per capita GDP. So there's some level on which, California as a whole is working, even though it doesn't work from a governance point of view, it doesn't work for a lot of the people who live there. And the rough model I have for how to think of California is that it's kind of like Saudi Arabia. And you have a crazy religion, wokeism in California, Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia. Not that many people believe it, but it distorts everything. And then you have like oil fields in Saudi Arabia, and you have the big tech companies in California, and the oil pays for everything. And then you have a completely bloated, inefficient government sector, and you have sort of all sorts of distortions in the real estate market, where people also make lots of money, and sort of the government and real estate are ways you redistribute the oil wealth or the big tech money in California, and it's not the way you might want to design a system from scratch, but it's pretty stable. People have been saying Saudi Arabia is ridiculous. It's going to collapse any year now. They've been saying that for 40 or 50 years, but if you have a giant oil field, you can pay for a lot of ridiculousness. I think that's the way you have to think of California.
Make no mistake, I'm not here to bash corrupt collie politicians or cry you a river. I'm raising awareness because California is worth saving. It's home to world-class surfing and beaches, epic mountains, 9 national parks, millennia-old trees, and some of America's best cities. We need to act as a collective. Fleeing the problem won't work, and blindly throwing money at the issues doesn't work either. It's time for an era of pragmatic, strategic thinkers to reform California. Here's how we could get serious about solving homelessness. Create more affordable housing options. Regulations to support small businesses. Tax reforms to save businesses and middle class. California isn't dead yet. It needs life support.
But today, more than ever, it's facing international and domestic challenges, and it needs to present a compelling reason to maintain its industries. For a long time, the assumption that California was just the place that people went to develop tech and produce entertainment was good enough. But it probably won't be forever. Okay, now it's time to put California on the Economics Explained national leaderboard, which we have done before, but that was over 2 years ago and a lot has changed since then. Starting as always with size, California has an estimated GDP of $3.4 to $3.6 trillion, making it comparable with the 4th or 5th largest national economy in the world, if it was to be counted as its own country. Of course, it's not, so these figures are less accurate than regular World Bank figures because things like imports and exports, which are major components of economic output, are harder to measure over state borders where, unlike international borders, almost no records are kept of what is coming or going. Even still, the state gets a 9 out of 10. Taking those GDP estimates and spreading it out over California's population of 39.2 million people means that the state has a GDP per capita of just under $90,000, which puts it in line with countries like Norway and Switzerland. So it gets a 9 out of 10, only really falling behind the true outliers with six-figure GDPs. Stability and confidence is both helped and hurt by being part of the largest and most influential economy in the world. Helped because it uses the global reserve currency, it has a huge domestic market for its products, and it has the protection of the US federal government if it finds itself in trouble.
This comes from someone who loves San Diego, Encinitas, San Clemente, Santa Barbara, and San Francisco. Cali used to be an elite sliver of land on Earth, but current officials can't solve these problems. Clearly, the next generation needs to step up. To the youth of California, the future of our state depends on you. The challenges are real, but so is your potential. Step up, lead with fresh ideas, and bring California back to its former glory. The Golden State needs your energy and vision. Start shaping tomorrow, today.